Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out and joining us tonight. Whether you are here in person or here joining us online, we are so excited to see you. And we had over 100 people register for the event, so obviously there's a clear need for this in the community, and we are excited to be able to host this for you tonight. Especially since this was a last-minute addition to our program and very late notice for everyone, so thank you. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank the FCPS leadership that is in the room with us. We have Rashna Sizemore-Heiser, Chair of the School Board. Dr. Michelle Reid is here, of course, our Superintendent. And I do not know if Mike Bloom is here yet. He registered. I have not seen him, but he was going to be here as well as Kirsten Maloney, the K-12 coordinator for the Advanced Academics Program, Jagnu Agrawal, the program manager for Special Education Curriculum Development, Kristen Haynor, I see online as our neurodiversity specialist, and Lisa Youngblood-Hall is here as well, our Chief Experience and Engagement Officer. We also have two new FCPS staff members in our community. We have a new dyslexia specialist. I believe she might be joining us virtually, Rachel Rubio. Rachel is returning to FCPS after spending several years with Prince William County Schools, where her work as a special education teacher was focused on providing an Orton-Gillingham approach to literacy instruction. Prior to her time with Prince William, Rachel served as a special education teacher at Frost Middle School, focusing on evidence-based literacy instruction. She's passionate about structured literacy and advocating for the needs of students with dyslexia. She obtained her bachelor's degree in communication from Pittsburgh State University and completed her coursework at the University of Virginia and earned her master's degree in educational leadership from the American College of Education. She's excited to be back with FCPS to provide support as the county shifts to literacy instruction with an emphasis on equity and evidence-based approaches to reading and learning. In her off time, she enjoys watching Chiefs football, traveling, and spending quality time with families and friends. I don't know that I can support the Chiefs thing. I'm a Bills fan. I don't know. But we are very excited to have her on board. We also have a brand new twice exceptional specialist. This is the first time that FCPS has had this position. I believe she was joining us virtually as well. Oh, yeah, there she is. I do hope that I will pronounce her name correctly. Please feel free to unmute and correct me if I am wrong. But we have Dr. Nonia Oladimeji as the new FCPS twice exceptional specialist. That is vocal diction lessons for the win. Thank you. She is an instructional leader with over 20 years of experience in the county and most recently worked at Glasgow Middle School as the IBMYP coordinator and as a special education resource teacher where she also supported twice exceptional students. This position, as we said, is a new position for FCPS. Prior, the work was collectively shared between staff from the Advanced Academics Placement Team and Special Education Office. A collaboration between offices and community advocates produced a web presence and staff and family handbook to share information about FCPS's commitment to serving the dual needs of learners who require both special education and advanced academics. And one of SEPTA's founders, well, a few of SEPTA's founders, but Laura Baker especially, who is here tonight and one of our founders, was a very big part of that twice exceptional handbook work. Thank you so much. So that is what has led us here tonight. So thank you all for joining us. Before I turn this over to Dr. Reid for her opening remarks, I have just a couple of very quick announcements. First, please know that this event is being recorded. We will be reviewing the recording afterwards to decide whether and what to share publicly, because of course we want to make sure that we are protecting the privacy of everyone here and everyone online who is choosing to share. We know that these are difficult conversations and we want to strike that balance between making sure we have the information to provide to those who weren't able to attend and also respect the privacy of those who are here in person, but want to give you a heads up about that. Secondly, we do know that election season has begun, and so we want to remind that all participants that as a nonpartisan PTA, candidate campaigning, distribution of materials, etc., is not permitted at our events, and this does include virtual backgrounds as well. So just a heads up, as we enter election season, we'll be continuing to give these reminders at our events. Third, our annual SEPTA Awards ceremony is open for nominations. Please help us recognize the champions of inclusion throughout FCPS by sending in your nominations by Friday, March 17th. You can find the awards site at www.fairfaxcountysepta.org/awards. You do not need to be a SEPTA member to nominate someone or to be nominated. All nominees, as well as their supervisors, will be invited to our awards ceremony on Saturday, May 6th, and we hope to see you all there with us. It is one of the most joyous times of the season, and I think we can all use a little bit of that joy right now. So I hope to see you then. And fourth, just as a very quick heads up, this morning and last night, the Parent Resource Center gave an IEP Changes webinar. They did record it. It will be posted on their YouTube channel. This is regarding the potential changes for school year 23 and 24, moving from what we currently know as the present levels of performance, the plot page, to the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, the PLAF page and meeting minutes. So this information will be available on the PRC's YouTube channel. We encourage everybody to go take a look at the recording. And of course, we will continue to advocate that there is continued education on this before it goes into implementation in the fall. And I'm going to leave it right there for right now and give the mic over to Dr. Reid. And thank you all again for joining us. We've got mics we can move around.
Oh, I have a mic, so I can move around. Okay.
If you would like.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm just making opening remarks.
Whatever you would like to share.
Before the fast facts. Yep. Okay. Good evening, and it's good to see you this evening, and all of you as well. So I'm just here to, hear a little more about the Choice Exceptional student services that we're providing here in Fairfax County, and kind of the ideas, feedback, advice, concerns, questions you have about that. I don't know that I have a lot of prepared remarks on the topic. It is a topic that's very important to me. I think it's how do I say it? I think some of our neurodiverse students who are enormously talented, I'm not sure we're providing what we should for them anywhere in the country, really. I don't think it's a unique to Fairfax County dilemma. And I think that there are places and ideas that I think are more accessible when we think about universal design for learning and ways in which all students can access curriculum at the level they, are at, in terms of, I don't know, just thinking about their curiosity levels and so forth at any age. So I look forward to the conversation this evening, and really that's all I would want to start with. So, all right, thanks.
So for this event, I'm actually handing it over to our Twice Exceptional Coordinator and our event planners. So I'm going to step away from the mic and let them take over. Hopefully.
Okay. Hi. Most of you probably don't know me because I've been somewhat more absent than I would have liked to have been. But my name is Emily Heckel, and I'm the chair of the Choice Exceptional Committee. On behalf of SEPTA, I just want to welcome everyone and say thank you for coming. We're extraordinarily excited about the turnout, and I just want to call out Diane and Michelle for doing a fantastic job of starting this event, planning this event, and getting us here tonight. As always, our two amazing advocacy chairs have gotten us an amazing result, so thank you both. I have some enormously large shoes to fill in that we had an extraordinarily talented chair of the Choice Exceptional Committee for many years, and you've already mentioned her being called out for her work on the Choice Exceptional Handbook, but I just want to call her out one more time because she's been an incredible mentor to me, and I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for me over the years. I really appreciate it. So we're here tonight to talk about Choice Exceptional students, and we'd be remiss if we didn't at least start to talk about what a Choice Exceptional student is. So you will probably Google this and find a million different definitions on the internet. this is the one that we chose tonight. It doesn't mean that it's the right one. It just means it's the one on the board tonight. Twice exceptional students are both gifted in one or more areas and not necessarily academically. And they also have an area of disability. These gifted areas could include math, science, technology, social studies, and or visual, spatial, or performing arts. A disability is of course defined by federal or state eligibility criteria. And some people may take exception with this term, but I'd like to think of my twice exceptional child as an extra special student. It's estimated, and again, these estimates are not based on real data. They're estimates based on the population at large, that approximately 6% of students nationwide or in the general population are twice exceptional. That's based on the fact that there are approximately 6% of all students are gifted, and it stands to reason that therefore 6% of disabled students are also gifted. The three largest cohorts of twice exceptional students are those that are gifted with ADHD, then dyslexia, and then autism. And it is important to note that the number with autism has doubled in the past 9 years. This brings us to the next important fact, which is that only 2% are the students that are identified as twice exceptional. So we have a large gap between those we think we know are twice exceptional and those that are identified as twice exceptional. This gap exists because disabilities can often mask giftedness, and giftedness can often mask their disabilities. Twice exceptional students are highly complex, and they rarely fit neatly into any of the boxes in which the current education system tries to fit them into. The barriers to twice exceptional services include identification. There's often inconsistent identification. We feel that we require an updated assessment method, especially because masking can cover deficits and vice versa. Tracking, there really isn't any data on twice exceptional students, particularly within Fairfax County. Academic failure is often used to justify the need for services. School eligibility decisions are limited, and the information that's used is limited, and it's often not really transparent to the parents. School eligibility is, it's often difficult to even explain. I looked up the definition for Fairfax County on gifted students, and I will admit that I couldn't even understand it myself. So it's subjective. It often is based on grades, teacher narratives, and I think we'll all hear stories tonight about why our students are often screened out. Additional barriers include placements being determined by disability services and not academics, knowledge gaps in the staff. It's often clear, particularly to those of us with twice exceptional students, that staff lack the knowledge of 2E policies, the available accommodations, and even what resources are available to them within FCPS. There's unfortunately a culture of resistance. The supports are often seen as coddling, and staff is often in opposition to providing the vital supports that these students need. Private evaluations are often seen as an annoyance rather than a help. Placements are an issue that I'm sure you're going to hear about a lot tonight. Parents are often told that students cannot be in honors or AAP because there just isn't an option to provide special education services in honors or AAP. There is a gap in knowledge about sensory supports, and often those sensory supports are not available. The supports for counseling, the supports for anxiety, in particularly for autistic kids, the supports for even just small setting, quiet settings are not available to kids. And then culture. Culture is important for everyone involved, and as we have already identified, parents can feel bullied and marginalized, and I think the biggest takeaway that I can bring to the table is this culture of no. The answer is almost always first, no. No, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. Sorry, there are 3 slides because there are a lot of barriers. So there is uneven access to direct instruction on essential skills. We need a continuum of 2E services. So we already mentioned more co-teaching, full inclusion, team taught, AAP, and self-contained 2E. There are uneven supports for strength-based focus, often SPED resource classes. So there's a common middle school class that kids are encouraged to take for executive functioning, then means that they can't take an elective, and that would be the elective that would build their strengths rather than focus on their weaknesses. There is no executive functioning curriculum throughout Fairfax County, and I can speak personally to the essential need for that because my son is tragically not at Fairfax County. He's out of school, specifically designed for students who need executive functioning supports, and he's thriving because it's incorporated throughout the entire curriculum. There is uneven support, particularly for strengths-based classes, as we've discussed. So kids are often screened away from the strengths-based classes that they would prefer to take. And that isn't only because of honors, that's often even just the availability of things like online math. And then we're going to repeat ourselves here, but a focus on, again, the weakness, because the kids are routinely structured around their disability rather than on their giftedness. There have been multiple studies that we and FCPS has conducted, and this is a timeline that gives you all of the various studies that have been done on choice exceptional students. So we have quite a bit of information out there already to support everything that we're going to tell you tonight. The unmet needs of 2E students have been studied and recommendations have been made starting in 2004 and ending all the way up through 2022. We do have 2 milestones to report progress, which is the handbook that we've already mentioned, which is an essential resource to both parents and staff, and also the recent hiring of the neurodiversity specialist and 2E specialist. So we do recognize that some significant milestones have been met. So never offer up a problem without a solution. What is needed? We need to address the gap between special education and advanced academics in collaboration with this new 2E coordinator and neurodiversity specialist and dyslexia specialist, provide students who need a small setting and high teaching support access to advanced academics, assess how the current advanced academics program can meet the unique needs of choice exceptional students, and educate staff on choice exceptional students. I do want to say that now that we have the 2E coordinator, we are hopeful that she can address this gap. But I do want to emphasize that even if we address that gap, there would be some significant challenges that would remain. Particularly students like my child who need a small setting with high teaching support, they currently have no access to advanced academics. So we have a proportion of students who end up homebound or in homeschooling or in private school because Fairfax County cannot provide them the adequate special education support. It is also unclear that the current advanced academic program as it stands right now would satisfy the needs of choice exceptional students because there are so many underlying assumptions built into that program that do not serve the unique needs of choice exceptional students. At a minimum, there need to be additional staff education about choice exceptional students given the pervasive culture of resistance to supporting these students. That brings me to my last and final slide towards a 2E center. And this is something that I personally feel very strongly about. As I mentioned, I pulled my son out of Fairfax County. I'm not going to give you a full narrative as to what happened, but it was either private school or a full residential mental health program. It was that bad. So what I'm paying in private school tuition, I'm not paying for in hospitalization bills. Small class sizes and environment are vital for some of these students, and it just can't happen within inclusion. And let's be frank, these kids are already not in inclusion. We know that they're either in day schools, they're either in CSS, they're either at home, or they're in private school. So talking about inclusion until you're blue in the face isn't going to get you there. These kids need specific, very targeted curriculum that isn't going to fit within AAP either. These kids can be grades ahead in one subject and grades behind in another. They can be incredibly gifted in performing arts and have absolutely no interest in AAP math. They need less homework, which AAP cannot provide. They need assignments that routinely account for the fact that they have poor executive functioning, which most teachers simply will not accommodate. So I'm sure you're going to hear I'm sure you're going to hear a mouthful from everyone tonight, but I do also want to highlight one more thing that I didn't mention, which is like-minded peers.
Yes. Yes.
I asked my son on the drive home this evening what he would like to say about his experience in public school and how it differs from his experience in private school. And he said very eloquently that public school does not accommodate the disabilities of students with disabilities, and that his new school does. But he also said to me the very, very, very first week that he got to his new school, "Mom, I don't stick out." And I'm sorry, but that broke my heart. And also healed it a little bit because I knew that he was finally where he needed to be. So that's just one tiny taste of the personal stories I'm sure you'll hear tonight. And I will now turn it over to our key takeaways and then a personal story. I'm not going to read out the key takeaways because I think I've already mentioned them. But the personal story, the first personal story that we're going to hear from today is from Erica.
Good evening. My name is Erica. I have a first grader who is academically gifted with autism level 1, ADHD, and anxiety. This is a common diagnostic profile, one that is shared by many children across Fairfax County. The question we are trying to answer today is what is needed for 2E students. The answer, in some ways, is simple. We need programs. FCPS, with all its resources and wealth, does not currently provide programming for students like my son, who are very bright with behavioral, social, emotional, and sensory challenges. Currently, these students can either live in a constant state of fight, flight, or freeze every day in an overwhelming general education classroom environment with inadequate support, or they can go to a catch-all comprehensive service site where their behavioral challenges take center stage and their academic gifts take a back seat. Comprehensive service sites are not autism programs. They are not designed to adequately address the unique needs of autistic students. Our children require an autism-specific 2E program, and this should not be a radical idea. There are other programs outside of FCPS in our region that can be referenced. It is a dereliction of duty on the part of Fairfax County that we have not developed a program to meet the needs of these students. There is a page on the FCPS website entitled Supporting Twice Exceptional Students with Autism Spectrum Disorder that has good foundational language on what a program should entail. But language without action is meaningless. Where is the program that executes the level of support referenced on this webpage? It doesn't exist. What we have instead is a system that is overly punitive, as illustrated by the recent report on disproportionate suspensions for children with disabilities in our county, as well as the lawsuit regarding restraint and seclusion, and school personnel who are not well supported to provide the scaffolding that these students require. To add insult to injury, because of the restraint and seclusion lawsuit, FCPS is no longer referring students to private schools with restraint and seclusion policies in place. So not only do our students not have a program within FCPS, we are no longer allowed to access appropriate programs outside of FCPS, as most private schools have these policies. Our children have nowhere to go. We need a program so that families in Fairfax County are not reinventing the wheel with school-based IEP teams year after year. The undue burden placed on our families to make up for all that our county lacks feels insurmountable. The emotional pain and suffering our children endure in inappropriate placements and the harm done to our families as a result is absolutely crushing. Please, Dr. Reid, and everyone else as well, help FCPS teachers and staff, help our families, and honor the legal obligation FCPS has to provide a free and appropriate public education to our 2E learners with ASD. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. It is my sincere hope that we can all work together to solve these difficult problems.
Thank you, Erica. That was really, really hard to hear, but great to hear. So I want to introduce the next part of our program, which is where we are going to have so much a poll. And we want this to be interactive. We want people online to participate. We want people here to participate as well. And we just want to get a sense of your experience. So we're going to ask some questions. And if you are here in person, if that applies to you, your child, your experience, please raise your hand. And if you're online, please type yes in the chat. And I already see some yeses coming in. So our first question is, have you ever been told by an FCPS IEP team that your 2E child can only get special education support in gen ed classes and cannot get the special education support they require in advanced academics, honors, AP, or IB classes? That's a lot of hands. All right.
Can I go one better and say I can't even get it in a gen ed setting?
Yes, that's another question.
All right, next question. Have you ever been told that your child in CSS cannot access level 3 or level 4 services? No? Great. I mean, not great, sorry. Thank you for raising your hand. All right, next question. Have you ever been told that your child in CSS, is that the same question? No. Okay, sorry, CSS cannot receive special education support if they push into gen ed for honors level classes? A few more hands there. Yeah, and yes, it's online. All right. Have you ever been told that your child's school does not offer team-taught honors courses? Or have you ever been told that team-taught honors classes do not exist within FCPS? Yeah. Right. And has your family ever considered relocating or moving in order to obtain better services for your FCPS child? A lot of us. All right, and so on to our next personal story is Charles. I don't know if you're here. Is he here, Charles?
Is he online?
I'm online.
Oh, he's online.
Oh, awesome. All right, we'll
Can you hear
switch
me?
to online. Thank you, Charles.
Awesome. Thank you guys. This is my first meeting. It's one of those weird things where you find that there's a community of people that you didn't know about and you get goosebumps when people are talking. So I appreciate everything that you guys have done before. I look forward to learning more. I'm going to take kind of through a different story because one of the things that I think that it's hard for leadership to understand is what it's like to kind of start this process and go through the process. I have 3 FCPS students, sixth grader who is in level 4. I have a 4th grader who is in level 4, but is diagnosed with dyslexia. And I have a 2nd grader who's on track to be in level 4, but also diagnosed with dyslexia. The 4th grader was our first experience of what this was like. And she was told that since we were told, and she was told that since she wasn't failing at reading, that she couldn't receive services. And at our school, oh wow, we just got to see you all. Thank you. At our school, Terrace Center, we had a great reading specialist. She worked with her a couple of times trying to test her, but she would never test under grade level. And therefore we were not getting the help that she needed. And at that point, we moved into COVID where she was online and not going to be able to get that help. So not only did we not get it while we were in school, but then she spent like a year and a half online, just struggling. Now we're fortunate enough that we were able to bail out of kind of the normal system and go get her private testing. And we're able to receive that diagnosis. As soon as we got the diagnosis, the school in the IEP meeting and or 504, whatever, I'm still learning the numbers and letters. They were with us and they helped. But now that we have the help and the diagnosis and everything, now the school doesn't have the resources to provide that help for us. We have teachers that are in classrooms that are supposed to be helping students like my daughters that are being forced to substitute teach because there's not even enough teachers to go, and we don't have a reading specialist in the school because she's retired and hasn't been replaced. So that's a 4th grader. Our 2nd grader was facing the same problems. We opted out from the beginning and just got her tested, and she's been doing a lot better. But again, the resources aren't there to help her. So at home, we're spending our money and our time and her time trying to get her resources so she doesn't fall behind, so she doesn't get frustrated with school, and so she continues to like to learn, which at her age she currently does. But I can tell you, my 4th grader, it's a struggle now to get her to go to school. She's already lost that edge and that love for it. So this is one of those things that I know other people are facing other issues, and sometimes they're more difficult. But fortunately, we were able to do these things, and we still can't get them the help that we need. And I know that because we can't do that, that it's pervasive for everybody. And so for me, it's just looking at the fact that we need more resources. And if we pay attention to these kids, these are the kids that are really, really amazing once you get to know them. So I appreciate FCPS for coming to this, but I really appreciate you guys for setting this up and allowing these stories to be told.
Okay. Is this thing? Yes, it is. Okay. Thank you very much, Charles. Really appreciate your testimony tonight. Thank you. I'm here to do the next audience poll section. And this question is, have you ever had to educate FCPS staff on the definition or nature of twice exceptionality? Raise your hand or type yes. That looks like almost everybody. Okay. Next question. Has FCPS staff
ever shared the FCPS 2E handbook with your family as a resource? If no, raise your hand. Okay. Next question. Have you ever shared the FCPS 2E handbook or other resources with staff who were unaware of it? So I think this is pointing to a trend here, which is that our parents know about an FCPS resource that our staff does not know about. Okay. Was your initial request for evaluations to the local screening committee rejected by staff who said your 2E child was fine? How many of us here and online came back for another local screening committee meeting 1 year later, or 2 years, or more than 2 years? And I suppose we could do that separately, but we could do, what we're really looking at is many of us have had to go through this process over many years, which also indicates that our kids are having their needs remediated much later, after a year, 2, 3, or more years of fighting in a system. Next question. Did your autistic child lose eligibility based upon the revised BCDs, which is the basis for committee decisions that they go through, that worksheet during eligibilities? So did your child lose eligibility based on revised BCDs? If so, please raise your hand. So we have 3 hands up for that one. Did you have to argue to maintain your eligibility category for autism after the BCDs changed? So we have a lot more hands raised in the room for that, which is basically a piece of paper is dictating whether or not your child gets services for their diagnosed disability. That's problematic in my opinion. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I have lots of strong opinions. Here's one that I think we all love, which is, have you ever had to hire an advocate or lawyer to help you obtain appropriate services for your 2E child? That's a lot of hands, and that's a lot of yeses online. Okay, have you ever paid for private supports for your child because FCPS did not give them the support they required in school? That's almost every hand in person and many more yeses online.
Another audience poll. Have FCPS staff ever complained to you that your child's accommodations are too difficult to implement? Yeah, about half or more. Yep. Great. Oh, good, I see a no online. That's good. Great. Have you ever been told that IB and AP do not allow accommodations? Quite a few. Quite a few online too. Has your child ever taken a team-taught honors class? One? Oh, not very many hands. Anyone more than one team-taught honors class? Online, anyone? I can't see. No. Okay. Has your child ever been told that there is no non-honors level class and that they would have to instead be placed in a self-contained class? See a hand, a couple hands.
They offer.
Yeah.
It's if your school only offers honors level, and if you're not taking honors, then you have to take self-contained.
Oh my God.
Oakton High School. Anyway.
Not in the names.
So now we're going to do some more poll questions. Does your 2E child's school have an alternate location for them to eat lunch? There are a few hands up, yay. Just a few. Do the school clubs at your 2E child's school accommodate their needs? And just a helpful hint, if it's a school-sponsored after-school event, they must accommodate your child's needs. Next question. Has your child experienced bias or exclusion by FCPS staff due to their disability? Have FCPS staff ever refused to implement or allow your child's accommodations? Have you ever been told that your child cannot or should not take advanced classes if they cannot work independently? Has your child taken gen ed instead of honors and then complained about being bored or not fitting in socially? All right, and I would now like to introduce Holly. Where did you go? There you are. Thank you very much for coming and sharing tonight, Holly. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, if people have questions on your index cards, feel free to hold them up and one of us will come around and grab them because we'll be asking the questions a little bit later.
Hi, my name is Holly. I'm mom to 2 kids in FCPS. My son Evan is 17 and he is a junior in the CSS program at Madison High School in Vienna. And he's my twice exceptional child. I encouraged him to come tonight, but he was worried about sensory overwhelm. He told me to represent him well, so I'm going to do my best. Evan is highly intelligent, but he has struggled with Tourette syndrome, which is not just tics, but a constellation of symptoms, including ADHD, anxiety, sensory processing difficulties, angry outbursts, and a lot of other things. He's doing great now, and that is because his school team is great. They meet him where he is, they acknowledge problems immediately when they arise, and they work out a plan of action, and they follow through on what they promised. They've really been fantastic. They allow him to take a combination of classes that range from self-contained to AP, according to his strengths and needs. And the staff works so well together that his self-contained English teacher has actually worked with his AP US history teacher to scaffold writing assignments. Evan's experience has been school dependent based on the school team's understanding of 2E needs and their willingness to accommodate them. The years he has felt understood and appreciated, he's excelled. The years he has felt misunderstood and honestly barely tolerated, he's been miserable, as have we. Evan was in the AAP program from 3rd grade through 6th grade. He consistently didn't get the support he needed and was promised, which resulted in him feeling overwhelmed and falling far behind his peers. He developed behaviors that made him stick out and impinged his ability to access the curriculum. For example, in 4th grade, our then newly hired advocate discovered that when he felt overwhelmed in the classroom, he was sitting in a corner and picking glue off his hands. In 5th grade, one of his teachers said in an IEP meeting that if he couldn't keep up, he just shouldn't be an AEP. In 7th grade, he was put in team taught classes because that's where the support was, and things went from bad to worse. He was bored out of his mind, which exacerbated his anxiety and his behaviors. It was a downward spiral that culminated in him literally having pulled out half the hair on his head by March. By May, he was refusing to go to school at all. 8th grade was when Evan started CSS, and it was out of pure desperation because we didn't know what else to do and his behaviors were so bad, there was no private school that would take him. There was no reason for things to have gotten that bad, for him to not get the support he needed at his base schools. He wound up leaving his friends, and since then he's had to travel an hour a day each way by bus just to get the support that he needs. I have a law degree. I have multiple years of experience as a lobbyist. My son basically became my client. It has taken hours of time, strategy, and emotional effort to get him where he is, not to mention lost income and the amount we have paid for testing, an advocate, and attorneys. Shouldn't require this much education, effort, or money to get appropriate support. And I wonder what happens to families who don't have one or all of those. I have so much more to say, but my time is limited, and I'm happy to answer questions or provide more.
Thank you, Holly. That was definitely hard to hear, but also I think probably gives us all some hope that there can be solutions that work for our kids. And thank you also, Michelle, for sharing your story and your daughter's story also. So back to our polling. have FC, does it go off? Yeah, oh, that's your biggest. Is this on? Okay. All right. So have that's loud. Have FCPS staff ever described your child as lazy, unmotivated, stubborn, resistant, non-compliant, or perfectionistic? Yeah, that's a lot of us. I know I had several years of lazy children that couldn't do anything. But anyway, all right, not here telling my story. So has an IEP team ever told you that your child is a bad fit for advanced academic programming due to their behaviors related to their disability? Decent number of hands up, a few hands up, yeah. Does your 2E child's school have an alternative for dressing out, changing clothes, for PE if your child cannot tolerate the locker room? Good, I see a hand up. That's good, one school. Represent. Has your child faced bullying or had trouble integrating socially because they are 2E? I think probably every hand in the room is going to go up here, and probably a lot of yeses online. Yep. Yes. And has your child experienced bias or exclusion by other children or students due to their disability? Yeah, probably 70–80% here. Lots of yeses online coming in as well. Thank you, online people. Has your school shared information with you about other parent education or support groups? Good, one hand. Oh, hand and a half, okay, good, good. I don't know, online, couple yeses, some nos.
Has your child been offered a lunch bunch or other pull-out group, excuse me, with like-minded peers for social emotional support? If so, did staff offer any resources to help? Okay, next. Do you ever, or always, have to drive your child to or from school because they cannot tolerate the bus? Quite a few hands in the room. Has your child ever been unable to attend school functions, i.e. field trips, assemblies, PTA events, due to their disability and the events not being inclusive? I would say I always had to go with him, but he was able to do them. Has your child experienced school refusal? Has your 2E child ever left traditional FCPS schooling due to difficulties in obtaining adequate supports and/or education, including appropriate setting? Examples include homebound, home-based, homeschool, private schooling, or withdrawal. Too many hands. And lots of yeses online. Do your school PTA or PTO events accommodate your child's needs? I guess this would be extra. Yeah, like extra PTA sponsored events. Bingo night, yeah. Movie night, yeah. I know we've had like a carnival.
Yeah.
A lot of no's and a few yeses online, and not many hands in here either. Okay. Has your school shared information with you about SEPTA? Wow!
Case manager last year.
Yay! I know, I've shared information with my school about SEPTA. Okay, I guess we're going to turn it over to a question and answer with Dr. Reid. I forgot to mention this originally, so if you have questions that you would like to read yourself, if you could put your name on the index card so that we know to call out your name, and if you prefer for us to read out your question, then don't put your name on the card. And if we haven't collected your index cards, we will come around and make sure we get them now.
And if you're writing questions now, just hold your card up when you're ready and we'll circulate. You need a card?
Oh, we have cards.
And we have pens.
Michelle. Michelle.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Reid, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for all of your time and for listening to our stories and not getting up and walking out, because I might have. We have a lot of questions here on cards. We have a lot of questions here online. And we've appreciated earlier in the year when we did questions with you and we just kind of did rapid fire, and we're happy to do that if you would prefer. All right. Lauren, do you want to start with a few of yours?
Sure. All right. So our first question from online from Devona Williams, who said that we could say their name. Does FCPS have plans to add more executive function elective options? Also low-tech options to help with focus, such as mindfulness and physical activity?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, more executive function electives. I think that I've heard mixed reviews on that. I think there's some interest in standalone courses around executive function, and then there is another viewpoint that then that takes an elective that a student might prefer to be in. So is there a way to incorporate the executive function skills within core academics? So I think it cuts both ways, and I think we're going to have to really be thoughtful about that. Honestly, I think executive function support benefits all students, so I don't know that. So anyhow, I don't know about the plans for that per se. Mindfulness, I think, is obviously essential. So I don't know that that's being looked at as a new course at this point. It is part of the responsive classroom, which is part of our SEL work at elementary, but I'm not sure it is at secondary.
All right, an anonymous question. As you are new to the district, what has surprised you about the way that FCPS handles its 2E children as opposed to your previous districts?
Well, well, I think what has surprised me. I do think the handbook is amazing. I did have an opportunity to review that, so I felt like that was really positive. That work, it looks really exceptional. I think we still have a ways to go, so I don't know that I want to. I'll leave it there. I think the handbook looks fine. You have to. I think that our staff works so very hard. I was thinking about that as I was listening to the poll and the stories, and our staff. You know, sometimes you only can do what you know to do, right? And so I think it's incumbent on leadership, myself and others, to really be thoughtful about what is possible. Because instruction continues to evolve, programs evolve, assistive technology is evolving. There's so many tools and supports and research that's that we can really leverage for our twice exceptional young people. But it doesn't necessarily mean that our staff know those tools or have those resources yet. And I just want to make sure that as we talk about this topic, which is so near and dear to each of you, that we're also thoughtful about our educators in the classroom who are working really hard and may not have as much information. And that's my responsibility to make sure they do. I just also want them to know that, and I'm sure there's some that are tuned in tonight, just wanting to make sure that we support their new learning as well in a thoughtful way, which again is my responsibility. So I think going back to surprising, right, just wanting to make sure that that everyone is aware of kind of the new research and has access to resources to support work they would like to do.
So on the topic of staff, we did have a few questions. One, I'm actually gonna answer. Why is there not 504 and IEP training for teachers and staff? There is.
No, there's not.
There's not.
There's not 504 training for teachers. There has been IEP training, but teachers are unaware that 504 is not following the conventions, is a civil rights violation.
I'm gonna repeat what you just said, that there is training for IEP
Yes.
for teachers,
There is not training.
but there's not training for 504 plans, and there are many teachers who don't understand that a 504 plan.
And I am a former FCPS teacher, there's no training.
And so many teachers are not aware that when they don't follow the 504 plan, that is an ADA civil rights violation.
I can't blame the teacher, but I'm looking to leadership.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. How are teachers trained regarding twice exceptionality? Or are they?
I mean, I think that's what I just spoke to, right? I think that I think we have a lot of work to do in supporting our 2E students and our staff who are working with them.
Is there a vision for a 2E center? And if so, what would that timeline look like?
There's not currently a vision for a 2E center. However, I met with several of you. I believe there's a person in Montgomery County that helped support that. I believe I've had an introduction. I believe we're setting up a meeting. So the sooner I can learn more about that, the better. I think it's, I want to have some conversations about that. In my last division, we created something called Innovation Lab High School, which is at a high school level, which part of the vision for that program was to have a school that would utilize innovation, kind of cutting edge work, and would be a 2E friendly environment. It was a smaller school, a 600 student high school that relied on, I mentioned universal design for learning earlier, so we had an expeditionary learning focus, which is a much more integrated, holistic focus, also with advanced courses, so that, but accessible in different ways. And just having a smaller size and a different class size ratio really made it much more accessible for our 2E students. So we'd only gone 2 years, I think, before I left. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and the utilization of different types of learning spaces, the mindfulness work, and technology used perhaps a little differently. So I think there is a vision, but we don't have it necessarily yet here.
All right, our students need structure. It's nice to be able to check on assignments, but every teacher uses Schoology differently. Can we have one system?
Ooh, I don't think that's a 2E issue. Just saying. I would love to lean into that, but I think that there are some school-to-school perhaps expectations, but then the research says there's great variability among classes within a school, so we'll see what we can do about that. I don't know that that's not fabulous, but at least they're all using Schoology, right? I mean, there's a time that we were using everything. Yeah.
And I did want to just chime in on that also. SEPTA did raise that question. I actually had a conversation with the person who was in charge of getting Schoology going. And I was told, well, we can't tell the schools what to do. And my response was, well, why not? And I think the sort of between the lines answer was because I like my job. And just pretty much it's up to every school. But even within the schools, there's not necessarily consistency within any particular school building.
And that speaks to something we've discussed a lot, right, Dr. Reid, which is that there's a lot of school-to-school variation, and how do we make that more consistent? Here's another question, which I can go ahead and answer this one for you. But I was told that my high school child, autism and ADHD, could not get an IEP because she did not take any special ed classes. Is that true? No, that is not true. Just throwing that out there. If you have more questions, you can talk to any of us afterwards about that, but that is not true. We got a couple questions about funding, Dr. Reid. So one is, do you feel that the funding is available in FCPS to support special education?
I would say that Fairfax County has more resources than any other division I've ever worked in my career.
Okay. Does FCPS have the resources and money to solve the team taught staffing issue in secondary school? In other words, is there any hope?
There's always hope. I will also say that I don't know that the team taught model is going to be always the most effective model for all students. To be blunt, I mean, I think often if you're going to put 2 educators in a classroom, that means you need more students in the classroom because you have to pay essentially the resources to put 2 certificated staff in at the same time. And there's a great deal of training, honestly, that's required to really do that thoughtfully. So I don't know that that's going to necessarily be the best option. It's an option, but I think 2E students are not a monolith group either, right? You know, what works for one 2E student isn't going to work necessarily for another. So I don't think we want to get into a place that if we had team taught AP, IB, honors courses, that's going to work, because it may not if lunch has 1,000 students in it, or do you know what I mean? Like there's all the passing time and unstructured time that may need to be in a smaller setting, which isn't team taught, but taught in a curriculum accessible way. So I think the plan has to be a continuum of services. And so I don't think I would even be a fan of making every course team taught. I don't think that would be a strategic use of our resources.
What are FCPS's plans for improvement for 2E students based on the AIR report?
There were 19 recommendations. I know there were some that centered around IEPs. I think Dr. Boyd is online. Can I phone a friend? Oh, they're behind me. Dr. Boyd, AIR report in 2E.
Yes, first of all, good evening, and thank you for allowing us to join in this opportunity. We are currently working in the special education and enhancement planning process in terms of developing our 4 focus areas, one of which is inclusive and instruction, and a lot of instructional items that are referenced here in terms of making sure that we are looking at the least restrictive environment. We know we heard a lot of concerns around access to various settings for different courses. So that's definitely some of the information that's being discussed. And those teams are actively developing what are those action plans to ensure that all students, whether they're students that are 2E, students who are instructed with the general curriculum, the essentialized curriculum, all students can access those materials. And also another branch of that planning process is the special education processes. As we know, there was a lot of discussion on this evening about ensuring folks understood the importance and really requirement of implementing accommodations outlined in students' IEPs and 504 plans. So again, I just welcome the opportunity for you all to share feedback. If you will send that information to me, I can certainly share any suggestions that you might have with those respective implementation teams as they are now beginning to embark upon plan development on that level to really identify some very clear and targeted actions in addition to 19 recommendations outlined in AIR's report that will automatically be implemented in the inclusion of our implementation plans.
Thank you.
Yes,
I want to introduce Michelle Boyd also. Dr. Boyd is our Assistant Superintendent for Special Services, Special Education.
Thanks, Dr. Boyd. I think you froze.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. My Zoom is a little wonky.
Yeah, all right. Thanks. Here's a quick one. Are there plans, or would you please ask all schools to make plans to provide quiet spaces for students to eat lunch at all levels?
It seems like that's reasonable.
You heard it. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't think we necessarily have a theme with the rest of them, but does FCPS have assistive technology / specialist programs or software for students with severe handwriting challenges, specifically for advanced math? Asking regarding the elementary school AAP level 4 level of math. Oh, go ahead. No one at my school seems to have an answer. Also asking for future math classes in middle school and high school.
I can answer that. There is a program called Desmos, DESMOS, that my youngest was introduced to in middle school during the pandemic, that I believe in addition to doing math might be able to support other sciences as well. I have asked for that accommodation for all 3 of my children. I never received it, and I have a child who literally failed the AP physics test during the COVID pandemic because they didn't have that accommodation. So ask about Desmos.
Will FCPS consider screening for autism and ADHD in early elementary? I'm not sure if this means through the local screening committee process, or do you mean just in general, like with hearing and vision? Is anyone who asked that? Oh.
Yeah, I meant in general.
In general, like as a hearing or a vision screening kind of thing, screening for ADHD and autism? Okay. So the question is, would there be?
Yeah, no, I got the question.
Shall I repeat that?
You could. It gives me a minute. I don't know. I think some of those screening, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how long that would take, right? Or is there an accepted best practice simple screener? I that's not something that I would know, honestly. So I don't think we have a plan for that at the moment, I guess I would have to say.
I mean, screeners are great, but those are also medical diagnoses.
I can't hear you.
That's a medical diagnosis, both of those.
Feels that way.
Because we have both of those, I'm telling you it is. So I mean, a screener would be fantastic because teachers, I know our teachers knew about some of these things and did not tell us, right? Because it's a medical diagnosis. So if there's a way to, do some sort of screener so that the teachers can feel comfortable telling us that we suspect that you have a thing and you should have your child looked at.
I want to just summarize what you're saying so that we can all hear it. It's that things like dyslexia and ADHD are medical diagnoses. And so technically the schools don't make those diagnoses. They will say it's a learning disability, or say your child is a bit hyper or inattentive or distractible, but won't actually tell you that this is a diagnosis that's going on. And so your question is, it would be wonderful if there was a screener so that the staff could have something concrete that they could rely on to say, this screener is indicating. Is that an accurate summary of your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know of a plan to do that. I mean, I guess at this point I would suggest that your pediatrician, right, if you have that concern or wonder or worry, or if it comes up in a conference, parent conference, to address that if it's a medical diagnosis, because I think a teacher is gonna really be reluctant to talk about a medical diagnosis since they're not a physician, right? So if there is a screener that's best practice that a school division is using effectively, I'd be happy to hear more about that or, look into that, but I'm not aware of that occurring, to be honest. Yeah.
All right, I have an online question that I like a lot. Have you heard anything tonight that you think could be implemented easily?
Well, maybe the Schoology response. I don't know, sometimes it's a simple solution, but I don't know that, I think the 504 training is a puzzle, so I'd have to look, I'm gonna take that back and listen to that a little bit. I don't know, I think there are a lot of things that, I don't know if easily is the right word, but I think we have to be intentional about this work in a So the 504, the Schoology issue, I think there are a variety of pieces to the different stories. If there's software that would be assistive and we're not providing it, right, like we could provide it. I mean, there are a number of pieces. I don't know that so there are a number of pieces. Is there something the person who asked the question thinks would be easy for me to get after at the moment?
Zach, if you said we could use your name, so if you would like to unmute and add more details, please feel free.
We need to throw her a bone, give her an easy one.
We can give the TUI handbook to every teacher in a My PDE module of a half hour. You've got to check it off. At least all teachers will know what it is.
Yeah. Yes, actually, we had someone in the room state that one thing she felt would be easy would be to have the TUI handbook in the MyPD module and have it be a mandatory thing that everyone would have to at least check off so that they knew what it was and where it existed. Did I get that right? Got it. And we have a plug for giving out information about SEPTA at IEP meetings. We've only been asking for 7 years. Here's one. How does FCPS plan to address students whose needs are unmet due to high academic achievement? These kids are often suffering with mental health issues due to lack of support. So I think this is getting to one of the issues that many of us experience with TUI kids, which is that they may be able to look on paper like they're achieving very high because they're getting great grades, but their mental and emotional health is so bad that eventually they crash, burn out, self-harm, or otherwise. Or the police get sent.
So the question is,
how is FCPS planning to address the needs of these students who are high academics?
Right, I think that's why we're here tonight, right?
Yeah.
So I think the first step obviously is the conversation about the center, and then really about what is the current programming, and because the handbook is, I mean, it really is thoughtfully written. I don't know how many of you in here were part of authoring that. It is thoughtful. Yeah. So, where's the crosswalk, right? About where are we using that? And we have a brand new TUI specialist, so I assume, that person is working even as we speak on planning. So just kind of trying to connect the dots. Yep.
Here's another one. This one is regarding autistic burnout. Why are short possible versus slower, deeper learning?
Well, I think that's if we are able to contemplate this idea of a center or a school that's smaller, then, I mean, a variable schedule is possible because, you're not locked into a comprehensive school site schedule.
I'll do one more and then pass it off to Michelle. This one says, and I don't know that you will have the answer to this, maybe somebody online will. I may have some answer to this. Why did FCPS eliminate the Wilson reading system in 2014 and never replace it with anything evidence or research-based for dyslexia? I've been very, very involved with the Equitable Access to Literacy Plan and literacy advocacy in Fairfax for 7 or 8 years at this point. I have heard many reasons why Wilson was discontinued. One thing I can say for sure is that Wilson requires a very high level of training in all who administer it, and FCPS, due to our size, really relies on the train-the-trainer model, and Wilson does not approve of a train-the-trainer model. I don't want to go any more into the rumors that I've heard, but that is one thing. The other thing is we have been working very hard to get evidence-based literacy programs, mediation programs, and you're right, we don't have a full solution to that yet. And we're still in the RFP process, so we haven't gotten any final word yet. I don't know if Mike Bloom or Dr. Boyd is on the line. but.
They are, but
to that.
the state hasn't released the list of materials.
That's true, yeah,
So
that is true.
everybody's in a holding pattern.
Yeah,
waiting for that.
that is true, because the state does, because of recent legislation, the state does have a list of approved programs that's coming out that the delay has been pushed back. That doesn't necessarily answer why we didn't have something before that legislation, but that's where we are right now. Because we don't want to invest millions of dollars in a program that then is not approved and has to go in the garbage. So better to spend our money wisely now.
I think that's always more prudent.
Yeah.
It's my understanding the list should be ready by April. I don't have any idea what happened in 2014 here. I will say that I was in a classroom just this week. Was it just this week? It was this week, it was yesterday. That was using Haggerty as tier 1 instruction, which I think is a strong evidence-based early literacy program. And so I am seeing elements of what I would call strong early literacy out there right now. So, and Haggerty's not a core, but it is supplemental in tier 1, so.
Yeah, I think this was specifically dyslexia remediation programs versus core instruction, which is slightly different, but I think the answer is the same.
And just for people to know, there's also a high incidence literacy matrix. You can just Google FCPS high incidence literacy matrix.
Yes.
And see what programs are approved currently in FCPS.
You're shaking your head no, I don't.
They're not research-based or evidence-based.
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
The high incidence programming is not research or evidence-based for dyslexia.
Some of the programs that are listed there are evidence-based.
For dyslexia.
Yes.
What day do you teach?
Yeah, this is a whole literacy conversation that I'm happy to talk about. There are different tiers of remediation, and in terms of a tier 3 remediation, you're actually correct. Tier 3 is often determined by the duration and intensity as well as the programming. And at this point, we're very actively advocating.
All right, a question from Jessica Saldana. Until money and resources exist, can we utilize some of the amazing parents and create volunteer-style programs for 2E students? I'm sure some of us would volunteer time. Not sure what it looks like, but I feel like a design effort could identify something that could help.
Well, maybe, right? And I don't know what that would look like here, but that's always a possibility.
Does anybody want to teach chemistry? I'll swap, yeah. All right, excellent. You do the chem, I'll do English,
I won't do English.
Okay, great, we have a team.
I know, every time they ask what the rock represents, I'm like, it's a rock.
I'm not willing to teach chemistry, but my son's a junior. We've come a long way. We've been through a lot. I'd be willing. If anybody would be interested in a mentorship program from more experienced parents to parents who are just sort of starting on this, I would be very.
Thank you. We have somebody offering to set up some parent mentoring, which is something that I think has kind of been tossed around a little bit in the past in SEPTA. So let's connect offline. All right, Lauren.
All right, I'm gonna have this be the final question from online because I know it is getting late. And this is actually Zach's question. I was off a line earlier. All right, so what is your vision, Dr. Reid, for how 2E services should work in FCPS? And how can our families best partner with you to make that a reality?
So, I think each and every child has the right to develop their unique potential, whatever that is. And I happen to be blessed to come from a division that worked really closely with our staff. In fact, it's ironic tonight. I got a text from one of our early childhood director in my last division, just checking in, right? But I think our 2E work begins with early childhood. And so my vision really is that pre-K through transition out of high school. I don't think we can focus on it like it's starting at a certain grade. I also know that many industries are looking for neurodivergent candidates. Microsoft was in our backyard in the Azure group, the AI group we're actively recruiting our neurodivergent graduates. And this idea of giftedness, I think how we choose to assess students and the measures we pick leave some in and some out always. And I think we need to really think about the purpose of sorting and judging and measuring and so forth, because human beings are so uniquely different. We have 4 children and they're completely different, right? And all of you who have children know that to be true. Having said that, my vision then is looking at the center. There are appropriate places for team teaching, but again, it's a continuum. It's not this is where all 2B children go, because we know that's not going to work. It's a checkbox, right? But it's not going to work for young people. So it's a constant evolution of new ideas, but essentially you have to pick models within a center or within a classroom that give universal access, which often is inquiry-based, in other words, open-ended questioning, allow children, students of all abilities, and I don't mean just intellectual abilities, but creative abilities and leadership abilities and artistic abilities, right? Like all those abilities to access certain content. It's the difference between memorizing the season names and asking what happens to plants over the course of a year when everyone can offer a solution, right? Well, leaves change colors. Well, what happens, right? Instead of having to memorize certain facts. So just getting really thoughtful about that is very important, I think. And there's some things that typically developing students don't do as well as neurodiverse students do, right? And we never talk about that. So I just think my vision is really a space, a learning space that is compassionate, and one that every student feels confident in, and just centered, right? Not feeling like they have to show up as someone they're not. So I know we're going to get there. The reason I'm here in Fairfax County is to create that model for public education for our country here, to be that lighthouse division for each student. And only by working together are we going to get there. It's everyone has an idea that can be contributed. Everyone's idea won't be implemented, but we have to listen to one another to figure it out. And often our students are better at that than the adults. We've heard a lot about what they would like. So I guess to summarize my vision, it's a continuum of services that starts pre-K through the transition. I know I've heard a lot about our transition out of high school into workforce or to post-secondary education or to whatever it is young people want to do. You look at traditional colleges and universities right now, enrollment has never been lower, right? Certain departments are being canceled, education, of course, being one of them. And we have to think about, I mean, it's serious, right? Like, we have to think about what do our young people bring to the table in a world that is going to be very different 20 years from now than it is today. I mean, it's true. 65% of our children sitting in K-12 classrooms are preparing for a career that does not exist today. We can work from our home. There's assistive technology for students to write papers without ever using their hands, to communicate with just their eyes, there's enormous, the world is just doing, it enables our young people to do things that are mind-blowing. I said at our strategic planning meeting that I believe my great-great-grandchildren will have a summer home in another galaxy. You laugh, but I think it's true. I won't be here to see it, but I think this world is changing. And I think it'll be probably a neurodivergent young adult that'll figure out how to get there. That's my vision.
And that's probably a great place for us to stop with questions. We will compile all the questions, apologies, so we can get to everybody's, and pass them along, so that know that all of your questions and so forth will be going to Dr. Reid.
We'd like to just end, if you don't mind, with, I think Marzano talks about motivation, that people tend to want to repeat what feels good. Conversely, not to keep repeating what doesn't feel good, right? And so the degree to which we can, even with the frustration that's enormous, if you could direct that to me and leadership, as you suggested in the back, and really with our staff, our teaching staff and our admin in the buildings, really be as thoughtfully, compassionately positive, because right now the work that our school-based educators are doing is monumental. They're doing the daily work then we're also addressing the current Office of Civil Rights outcomes. So that's another layer of work, which really they were not, anyhow, that's another layer of work. So the degree to which we can stay positive in those conversations, I would appreciate it. And if you need to be frustrated, send me the email or be frustrated with me. But let's, I think our staff on the front line really need our support and thoughtful compassion and grace at times, because I think everyone is feeling a bit of pressure at this time. So anyhow.
To follow up with that, I think too, it's important to remember, and we are SEPTA, which means we are parent teacher. So we not only represent our students and families, but we also represent our staff. And we always try to have very open arms, and I appreciate your comment, because this is not about blaming anyone. This is about trying to collectively find a solution for an unmet need. And I think I always have had good relationships with my kids' staff, and they have always tried their hardest. And I think that that is an important thing for our educators to hear who are online and those of you who are in the room, and that your efforts are mighty and appreciated. And we always welcome input from teaching staff to come to us, and not just teaching staff, cafeteria workers, floating resource officers, whoever is in the building can come to us, and we are happy to advocate for their needs as well. So,
right, and then maybe a year from now, we'll make it a date, March, what is today? March 7th, interesting. So we can make it a date next year, and we can update you on the progress we've made. Because I know we will, this is a priority for me, so I wouldn't be here this evening. So we'll be working on it, and we'll get after it. So anyhow, thank you.
Thank you for staying so late.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reid. We really appreciate you being here tonight. And I too want to echo my thanks for bringing up the grace for our educators right now, especially with the OCR report. We know that our educators are spending hours on single worksheets for a single student. That work is so appreciated. And we know that this isn't anything that was your choice, as it wasn't ours as well. So grace and patience and love as we go through this process, I think, is going to be key for all of us to get through it. So thank you for that. Thank you to everyone who shared stories here tonight. While I may not have a twice exceptional student myself, much of what you have experienced resonates with me on this different side of the special education spectrum as well, and I think many other SEPTA families would also feel the same. So thank you for your bravery in sharing this evening. I'm glad that we could provide that space for you. I do believe that our school board chair, Rachna Seidenmoor-Heiser, would like to say a few words for a minute, and then I will have some closing remarks really quickly.
Thank you, and I know it's been a long night, so I won't take a lot of your time. I just want to say, for someone who used to be on the SEPTA board and who has two 2E kids, one academically exceptional and one non-academically exceptional, musically talented, I feel your pain. I was raising my hand alongside you a lot with those. So I just wanted to say, I believe Dr. Reid when she says in a year this will be different. Two of the things I really fought for and championed was the neurodiversity specialist and the 2E specialist, and I think they're going to do good work together. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for the incredible PowerPoint that you put together, and I just want you to know that there is hope. I have a 2E kid who's very musically talented, but has a lot of high needs in many areas, and all the way until I was on the school board, vice chair of the school board, and I still had a counselor who wouldn't recommend AP Music Theory for him, and he's now a freshman at Berkeley College in Music. So there's hope. I just want to tell you, there's hope, right? And it happens to even school board members too. So we will work on it, we will get better. I promise you, this is a priority for Dr. Reid. It's one of the reasons I really was excited when she applied for this job and was really hopeful that she would come here. Just thank you.
Just one final reminder before you all leave, our awards nominations are open. Please go fill out those awards, share the love for our staff and our students. We have a student category this year also. So as you can see up there, www.fairfaxcountysepta.org/awards, and that's open through March 17th. If you would like to come join us again virtually, Tuesday, March 21st is our typical monthly SEPTA general membership meeting. We will be announcing the slate of candidates for the 23-24 school year, and we will also be having a presentation entitled Talking to Your Children of All Ages About Relationships and Sex Ed. Our presenters that night are going to be Melissa Hochberg and Arlene Leshner from the organization EASE, which stands for Empowerment, Advocacy, and Sexuality Education. EASE is a local nonprofit that provides online relationship and sex ed courses for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So my understanding is that this presentation is geared toward adult caregivers and not students, so just to be aware of that going into it. But we hope that you will all join us. That is a virtual event. And I believe Dr. Reid has one more thing for us to say, and we will take you up on that offer for an event next year.
Yeah, I knew you would. It's like saying I'm gonna lose a certain amount of weight, right? And you tell everybody, it's like, uh-oh. No, I just didn't, Lisa reminded me, I don't wanna leave tonight without promoting our opioid night next Monday night at Fairfax High School. And I think the reason why I wanna make sure I share that with you is students have been poisoned to death inadvertently by just accepting a gummy or accepting, I mean, this is a real deal and it is in our schools. So I really hope you make time and use your social networks to share that information. It is life and death right now. And as I said, it's time to, I think, have a very frank conversation about this, which we plan to do Monday evening as a community, because this is critical. If it was
Actually, we have a SEPTA, we have a SEPTA event in April where we're working with the substance abuse prevention specialists to bring how to talk about substance issues with your child who receives special education coming up in April.
Yeah, I just think it's important that we do that, and also just want to finish by thanking those who shared their stories. Your truth is helpful and I appreciate it, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reid. And thank you for sharing about that opioid event on Monday. Obviously, this is a very critical issue for all of our students. The student in Arlington in February was a special education student, so it hits home. As a parent of a student who's minimally speaking, it is terrifying. So I'm looking forward both to our event and also to SEPS's to learn more about what is modified for our students on the entire spectrum to be able to access this education. We have one question. Dr. Reid, is the event Monday virtual or in person, or is it both? I saw location is Fairfax High School, but I don't know if it's hybrid also. It's both, it's hybrid. All right, there you go. What time is it?
It's at 6 o'clock, I believe. The DEA is actually doing the bulk of physicians coming in, and the drug enforcement folks and the police chief Davis and our boards are at 6.
Okay. 6:30?
I think there are going to be things up for people to talk to. The formal thing starts at 6:30, but I think there will be things to do at 6.
Okay, it sounds like for those online who may not be able to hear, it sounds like there will be some potential like networking, kind of walking around things available at 6, but the formal event is designed to start at 6:30. And the police chief will be there, the DEA will be there. 6:30 to 8. The in-person event is at Fairfax High School. So hybrid as well. So we hope that you will join that conversation as well. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you all for joining us online. Have a wonderful night.